Killing characters. Man, that's a really good topic. I love killing characters, and I'm like a big fan of writing horror, so there you go. That's kind of a thing you gotta do. But either or, I got a question about how to go about killing a character. So I've got some opinions on this. And yeah, so there we go. First and foremost, death is a bit of a crutch for some newbie writers, I find. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to a character. Just remember this. Like, death is not the worst. There's so much more you can do. And sometimes it's the worst, but not always. And I talked about earlier in the month. I talked about stakes earlier in the month, and I'll link that there. If you really want to make things impactful and painful and terrible for your characters, look at their personal stakes in the story first, rather than resorting straight to death. Okay, when is it a good idea to kill a character? The main one I would point to is, does it serve the plot? It doesn't have to, but one of the main reasons to kill a character is for plot necessity. Death is a great motivator for characters. Inciting incidents, midpoints, low points often include death as a sort of catalyst, motivator thing to move your main character into action. There's so many stories that include this. Like, you just kind of have to pick one, and it's there. Death of a mentor is the big one. Usually it's the midpoint of the story, or it's usually a midpoint moment for the characters where the mentor figure dies. We all know it. The plot is a very good starting point for when you're trying to determine whether or not to kill a character. Another good reason to kill a character is to give a feeling of toothiness, and this is one of my favorite phrases to use. But if you want a scary villain, but they keep meeting the hero and failing to do any sort of damage at all, then your villain has no teeth. Your heroes might be a bit more cartoonish and feel like they're kind of invincible. Again, you can do the same thing without killing characters around them by having the villain attack them in more stakes oriented fields, or they can do damage in different ways. But adding death is a good way. I like to add a likable character or two with little plots of their own, and then I cut their life short just to show how capable my villain is of murdering things. And there you go. That's a great way to kill a character, to show that you will. It doesn't only emphasize the villain's toothiness, it emphasizes the story's toothiness as a whole. If there's going to be death and murder in your story, sometimes it's good to bring it up front and be like, hey, see this character you really like that you've been hanging out with? I'm gonna murder them. This might happen again, so this is your warning. Yeah, and there's other great reasons, good reasons to add death to your story, but that's kind of the point. There are reasons. When you're thinking about adding death to your story, consider why you are doing it. Senselessly killing characters without regard can get mind-numbingly boring, and it can really numb your impact when you want a death that's meaningful. If people feel like they can't really get attached to things, it can be just as boring and kind of it can be just as boring as having characters that are all shielded in plot armor and nothing happens. It's just two ends of the spectrum, and you got to be careful about it, and you got to pay attention to stakes first more than you have to pay attention to death. And in addition to that, just because you know a character is going to die doesn't mean you should neglect them as a character. If you don't treat them with the same love as another side character or main, then no one's gonna care when they die, or they're gonna see it coming from a mile away. If you flesh out your side character right before they're about to die, your readers are gonna get so sus on you. Or maybe that's just me, but that's a trope I hate, where it's oh, we're suddenly learning all his backstory. I bet he is going to be killed in the next scene. Oh, yeah, he's dead. So be careful about that. If you plan on killing a character, just make them likable from the get-go, and don't make them any more likable than other characters that get to live. You gotta balance that out. Basically, a character doomed to die isn't any different than any other character. No special treatment should be given to them. Though if you really want to pull out heartstrings and have them die and really hurt people, have them have a plot arc and like right as they're about to like achieve their goal, just kill them. That's fun. That's a great way to make people cry. And if they're not the main character, like, don't do it to your main character, but side characters, hell yeah, have fun. Just ruin their dreams. And then you can, like, watch your audience scream and sob, and you can just laugh it up. That's why you become a writer. Yeah. Okay, so that's all my I have to say about death currently. I can probably go on other topics, like how to have other characters react to death and how to make it more impactful and such. But that's it for now. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Delaney. He is from the Space Kids RP. He is in a band with Jake. Jake was mentioned in a previous video. I'll link to that. So Delaney is not a space alien like all of the other kids. He's one of the humans who lives in the human world of Earth. Oh my god, what's that phrasing? But he lives on Earth as a normal human boy, and he's in a band. He's the only one who's kind of not in college right now. Like, all his friends are in college, but he has a lot of trouble dealing with, like, life in general. He's got massive OCD. And it comes out in sort of like agoraphobia type ways too, where he doesn't leave the house much because it's just very stressful, the amount of work he has to do in order to get out of the house. He has like obsessions with like numbers and his hands. He's really worried about his hands being damaged. Other than that, he's kind of messy too as a person. Like, he doesn't like keep his house super clean because he doesn't like to touch things, so everything kind of just falls apart around him. So he's the son of like kind of a rich family. He's got a sister who's a lawyer. Her name's Winter. She's cool. His dad is pretty upset with him for like just being weird in general and doesn't really support him in any way, so he's kind of stuck on his own. He lives with some of his bandmates. I think he lives with AJ, the drummer, and Dave, who is like his on and off again boyfriend. Dave has it rough in this RP. He gets harassed by Henry. Henry harasses everyone, but he really harasses Dave in like bad ways. Eventually, we get Henry to leave Dave alone and stop stalking him at work. Bad Henry, go away. Because Dave's like really cute and Delaney's really cute in their opinion. Okay, so yeah, Delaney has a hard life. He doesn't leave the house much. He becomes friends with Robin, I think. I think he becomes friends with Robin. She tries to get him to live his best life, but he's bad at it. So Delaney's kind of like tangentially related to the whole Space Kids RP. Like, while we're doing like the Space Kids RP, like everyone's going crazy doing all this space stuff, Delaney is like out of the picture. Like, Delaney is almost like a side character that doesn't really relate to any of the space stuff until like the very end, where like we discover that his mean father fellow is actually like his dad was always out on business when he was like a kid, and his mom died when he was young. She had like ALS, and that's sort of part of the reason he's kind of one of the triggers that got him kind of obsessed with his hands, was like looking for like tremors and being like, oh god, what if I have it, but I don't want to like check out to see if I'm gonna like develop ALS, basically, because he's spooked. But it turns out his dad, who is always off on business, is actually in the space government, but he stays on Earth to keep low when he's like, you know, no one on Earth is gonna know who the basically the president of space is, so he goes there to kind of chill out. And like, so yeah, his dad is the big baddie kind of in the end. So what ends up happening is, so his dad has created the Zero Containment Facility, and the Zero Containment Facility is meant to contain the dragon Zero that lives at the center of the universe. You really need to watch the other videos to understand all this, especially the Toby one. Like, so he made this AI thing that contains Zero. Meanwhile, this AI has become rogue and has her own plans on how to deal with things. So what the AI starts doing is it starts collecting wizards and trying to turn them into sort of like algorithm things, just so that it is able to use their latent magical abilities without them being kind of attached to people. So she does this with Kathy's sister, Squid. Her name's not Squid, but she goes by Squid. Kathy is one of their bandmates. She's the only one whose memory doesn't get erased in the end because her latent ability is to kind of be invisible all the time to people. People always forgetting Kathy, but her little sister, who got abducted by aliens when she was a child, she ends up getting double abducted and taken to the Zero Containment Facility, where she's still distilled down into code, because Squid has the ability to absorb energy, and that's what ZCF, the Zero Containment Facility, wants to do. It wants to kill the dragon and take all of its power, and her magical power is taken so that the computer is able to use it. Meanwhile, Delaney also ends up being captured at some point, because Delaney and his sister have the ability to control these phantom dragon things. Basically, the Zero is like a phantom dragon, so he is able to control dragons through his magical singing voice. His mom taught him to sing. She was very rigorous about his singing teachings. He has the ability to awaken Zero, and his sister has the ability to put Zero to sleep. Meanwhile, his sister knows all about the space government and stuff because she was really close with her father, and she's like a space lawyer now, slash a counselor on the space government. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Delaney gets captured by ZCF. ZCF basically turns him into just, like, gets rid of his body, turns him into just a bunch of, analyzes him, takes the power of Muzix away from him. Well, it copies his ability to awaken and control the space dragon. His body is disposed of, and eventually when Toby and Henry end up stuck on the planet that ZCF is stuck on herself. When they get sent onto this planet, because I think they're trying to save everyone. They're trying to save, like, Squid. And so they get stuck there, and they find what's left of Delaney, and he's like a little AI left on a kind of crappy computer. So they take that and they bring it back to 11. 11 being the planet that Jake lives on with his mentor slash mother, Layla. And they bring the computer to Layla, and Layla's like, oh no, he needs a body. So Delaney gets a body commissioned, basically, and he ends up getting a robot body that is basically his, but he's not really a fan of it at all. He's like, oh wow, I'm not a real person anymore, I'm dead, and he's very, very upset about all of this that has happened to him, and he kind of goes into a big downer slump. Eventually they're able to, like, push him through it a little bit. It's really hard for him because he's got a lot of issues in general, and they get him to help them defeat ZCF, and he sings to Zero, and frickin' Toby awakens as a dragon, and the universe is reset. Oh my god, I feel like I talked very shortly about so much stuff. There's so much that goes on. Delaney spends like 90% of the RP just kind of like sulking about and being sad. He's my boy. I like him, even though he's a good person, and like a lot of it isn't his fault, but damn, he treats his bandmates pretty poorly and lets them down a lot. And not just because of like his mental illness, just because he's a little self-centered and oh woe is me all the time. Poor Dave is always trying to help. Like, Dave has been his like best friend since they were kids, and Dave has always had like a major crush on him, but Delaney feels like he's not good enough for Dave, and yeah, that doesn't go well for Dave. Eventually they don't really end up together because they realize there's a lot of baggage there, and Delaney needs to sort out his own stuff. That's how you kill a character. You put them in a computer forever. Okay, I don't really know where else to go with this, so I will say goodbye for now. I have to edit this because I was out all yesterday, so I didn't get to do this until right now. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching like all of these Inktober things, because like we have like so few left. We're coming up at the end here. Crazy. Check out Moonlight. There's like a little over a month left to submit to the Moonlight Anthology. You can follow the Moonlight Anthology on Tumblr, and you can also follow us on Tumblr. So Tumblr. I finally opened up our asks on Tumblr, so if you want to shyly ask us like anonymous questions, you can do that. We'll probably answer. I only answer on weekdays for my own sake. So if you send us an ask and you're like, where's the answer? It's because I don't do it on weekends. I got things to do. Okay, thank you for watching. I don't even know. Don't murder anyone, okay? Just in your writing, okay? Let's be cool.